How do you define fun? Well, we're going to find out today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fervent 4. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? That means only 4% of businesses in 365 days make over $1 million. Wow. I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. And with me today, I have my co-host, Tim Ryan, lead man at startwheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent 4 is a weekly show each and every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business, no matter the climate. It could be hot, cold, windy, snowy, whatever. Are you ready for the Family Fun Experience? Please welcome Tim Ritter of Family Fun Xperience to the Fervent 4 show. Hello, with the waves, the claps, the long hairs, the crazy beards. It's another beard edition of the Fervent 4. What's up, gentlemen?
How's it going, Zach? Hey, Tim.
Hey, Zach. How are you guys doing?
Well, you know, I'm still gonna put my name in the hat for when the Virginia Beach or wherever in this region gets a basketball team or any professional sports. I want to be the announcer. So I think moving forward, and I should have started this week with you, Tim. Also, this is our first 2 Tim editions, so this will be fun to see how confusing that is. I think I need to start introducing people like I would as the announcer of the Virginia Beach Vipers NBA basketball team. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, from Tim, where are you from? Buffalo. From Buffalo, New York, Tim, the Tool Man Ryan.
You nailed it, man.
There, got it.
Well, so, New York. Yeah.
Tim Ritter, you have a very unique business. So I've known you for a few years now. You started exploring the idea of Family Fun Xperience, the FFX show, over a few years ago, and you pulled the trigger in 2020 and got a space. And beforehand, you had been meeting a bunch of people, networking, letting them know, perfecting your performance, your pitch, and stuff like that, and then March of 2020 hit. And so it was a big day for you, and then kind of like a really big and weird day for the world. Can you just walk us through kind of the Q1 of 2020, if you will?
Yeah, we had been looking for some spaces last year to launch this thing. Our vision was to launch this at the ocean front so that we could have a tourist season for those 100 days of the year, and then the other 7 to 8 months of the year we would have a local season and be another reason to draw people down there. And we had looked at a couple spaces at the end of the year. Nothing had quite panned out like we'd hoped it would. We were thinking, well, we'll have to shoot smaller somewhere away from the ocean front. A friend with a surf shop down there had said, hey, I got this nightclub next door. I don't know what they're going to do this next year. They've been trying to change something up, and introduced us, and one thing led to another. And first week of March, we signed, for a lease to take over this nightclub and convert it into our theater. Beautiful space. And 1 week after we signed the ink on that, we were going to take over the space on April 1st, April Fools. 1 week after we signed the lease, the governor shut everything down. So we were shut down before we opened our doors. But we were able to, try to do a few things in there during that time. We were well into phase 3 when we finally got some clearance to be able to host anything there. And so we were able to start casting for the show and moving things forward. But first quarter was just getting us into a dream space for the theater. And the second and third quarter were an interesting ride.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're telling the story, I'm sure that based on getting everything going, you had to have some financial projections and some numbers based on like ticket sales and how many people that you needed to bring in the door. I mean, so you didn't even have a chance to even get that started. What in the world did you do?
Well, we panicked, and then we pivoted. And that was been sort of our key word for this year. It's not been unprecedented for us. It's been pivot, and it's been an almost daily thing. I know the governor's got an announcement this afternoon, and we expect we'll probably find another way to pivot to accommodate whatever it is there. But basically, we stretch things as a nonprofit to say, okay, this is the right move, and went into that space. So we had just enough funds there to say we're going to start recruiting the actors and some of we had people on board to start April 1st, and we had to sort of put a hold on all that because we were looking at it going, we've got to keep the lights on, we've got a commitment into the space. And honestly, at the very beginning there, we were hoping, like a lot of people were talking, it's like, well, 3 or 4 weeks and this is all going to pass by. We just got to survive this month. So we'll just hold off a month. Then we'll get our fundraisers and other things all going. And our goal is really to launch the show partially by somewhere mid to late May and then fully, in June. And so that all obviously got held off by quite a few months. But it wasn't just ticket sales. It's a nonprofit. Having like a lot of theaters do this, and you're a nonprofit, your funding is not entirely from just ticket sales and things like that. It's also, you get a playbill and you walk in and you've got sponsors and ads and things like that. Well, this also hit the business community that we've known so many people for that were encouraging us all along with all this. And, a lot of nonprofits have found it's been very difficult to get donations. A lot of the standard things have sort of gone out the window this year for businesses. So it wasn't just the ticket revenue and side things. It was that as well. So we didn't really qualify for payroll protection because I hadn't taken a payroll as the executive director trying to get this whole thing launched at the beginning of the year or last year. So that was all going to start as things started rolling, but that gave us no basis for a payroll protection loan and very little other assistance. Some of the more recent CARES Act, we've gotten a small amount of some grant money through the city, and we've been very appreciative of that because that's helped us keep the lights on and keep actors and things moving forward with the show. So it's just really by the grace of God that we've kept the doors open till this point.
So you use the word pivot. I think that's a word that people talk about before 2020, right? Pivot, pivot in business, pivot and pivot. Real quick, how would you define a pivot in general? What would you say a pivot is?
I think when you pivot is when you're responding to what's going on in the economy, what's going on in your market, what's going on in your business conditions, and you're saying we need to adjust some part of our business model. I think in 2020, pivot has meant more than that. Right. I think it's meant you had a plan A, a B, a C, and a D, and you threw all those out the window, from yesterday and went to a new one. So we've stopped talking about having a plan B. It's just like, what are we going to do to respond to things and pivot daily?
Well, and something that I've been saying since we started this show, how many episodes ago, who knows, probably 40 episodes ago, is a lot of this stuff is the acceleration of stuff that was going to happen 5, 6, 7 years down the line. Right. And so this is where the world is going. This is the type of stuff that you're going to see. People aren't going to be using calculators anymore or abacuses anymore. They're going to use their cell phones, or they're going to talk to Siri and it's going to say, oh, 1 + 1 is 3. Wait, I still don't understand that.
Gone downhill a little bit recently.
Yeah, downhill. Yeah. Oops. But so from a pivot in something like this, where you don't control a lot of the things that have been dictated to you. Because I remember you told me before, you can't get actors because they have to follow this protocol, and then they can't do this. And then you can't bring people in because the type of establishment that you have, people have to be in a certain way and max capacities and the reduction of capacities and all this other kind of stuff. So how do you pivot into something that you don't even know tomorrow is going to allow you? And tomorrow's a great example with who knows what tomorrow will do. So how do you start to figure out what is even possible when the world is what it is?
I've always been sort of known as the idea person, looking at things that are going on and coming up with multiple alternatives and brainstorming and stuff like that. And so that's been really useful here because we've just tried to find every avenue. So just knowing other businesses through Atlantic Avenue Association and stuff down at the oceanfront, several of them encouraged me. It's like, you've got to be in, all 4 of the coupon books, or at least, 2 or 3 of them, and that's a pretty hefty price to get into these coupon books and be in that market. But there's businesses that don't do that, they don't survive. So before we, had launched, we had signed agreements with 3 of the coupon books and had some real good stuff going. None of the 4 published this year.
Is that because those books historically are the thing that tourists would come down?
Yeah, that's the main thing. People are looking for what is there to do, and can I get a discount on something, whatever? And there aren't
Because I remember Xerxes Nabong of Escape from Virginia Beach using that, some of the paid ones, some of the non-paid ones, where he would have those pamphlets and he would give them out. And he said that was a tremendous thing for him to go out all over the place, even though his business was more towards Mount Trashmore. So, I mean, historically that thing worked, but then now obviously it's not that it's bad advice. It's just, it's some of those adequate advice for right now.
Yeah. 40 and 47 years. And they had never not published, and they didn't publish this year. In fact, one of the four, the largest one, went out of business. And so it's like, okay, well, there's
not published because they just couldn't be open. They didn't make the money. Like, is there a reason?
A lot of businesses weren't sure what they were doing, so they couldn't commit to ad space, and that's all the pieces sort of had to link together to make that each of those publications work, and it didn't. And some of them were trying to offer us some online stuff and try to help us out just because they knew the predicament we were in. And you pivot to things. So like there was a group called Locals Helping Locals that got started up because of the pandemic. Hunt Club Farm, Coastal Edge, Pembroke Mall, iFly, us, and a number of others, all just started getting together on a weekly conference call saying, how can we help each other out? How can we help the community? And, first we were just figuring out, where do you get masks from? Where do you get sanitizer? And, we were trying to adapt all the stuff, not knowing what day or when we were going to be able to open up. And that group was helpful. They ended up publishing a little brochure that's gone around to the area. And we're part of that. And so we found ways to pivot, but then every day it's a new thing. So
I would think that groups like that are great for the soul, great from the entrepreneurial standpoint. But at the end of the day, I've seen so many plans from so many organizations, not like a business organization, but more like like state organizations and all these things, federal organizations. And the problem that I see with all these things is if traffic isn't coming in, it doesn't matter how great that plan is, right? And so what are you going to do to bring in those people? Right. And so it's been frustrating to me where people are like, oh, we're trying to rebuild. It's like, yeah, but what are you going to do to try to convince those people who have been absolutely terrified to go somewhere that it's absolutely safe to go into this place now? Because now we're going on 9 months of this. Right. And I've said this since the start, however many months that we go through something like this, it's going to take that many months to get those people to start feeling comfortable again to go to a place. So you can't just have a projection. Even as a business, you can't do this. And then these state and local organizations that want these projections to work, they aren't going to work if people don't feel comfortable to go back into a place. Like I went to the doctor's office the other day and some guy walked in without a mask on. And I'm like, dude, like this is like the one place you would expect a person not to have everyone in a mask. It's like, well, what's the situation here, right? I mean, he figured out he got a mask, but
no, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of things we did to try.
People aren't coming in, you're screwed. You can be open, you have the greatest plan in the world, but if people aren't feeling safe enough to come in, especially when you have a facility that's supposed to be more, you have a more extracurricular activity, right? It's not a.
Yeah, our hallmark was that we were interactive. It was not just live theater, but we had these interactive elements. Great, big, fun things. We had to completely reinvent all those things.
Yeah. Because you're a nice to have, not a must have.
What's that?
You're a nice to have business, not a must have business.
Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing the matter with that. That's just It
is.
That type of business, the first one that governors are closing because they're like, well, you don't have to have it. But then from the soul perspective, it's like, well, people need this for their soul to feel good about themselves.
Right. And the safety and security it's a really tricky tightrope there. When the governor came out a while back and put a limit, we were literally going into our final dress rehearsal night. Or one of our dress rehearsals for the weekend we were launching our big show, in November. And our sound engineer came in. He said, hey, did you hear the governor just made another announcement this afternoon? I was like, oh, I'm so busy with all this. I didn't know he was talking this afternoon. I probably tuned in and read every line like I did before. And he said, yeah, they limited it to only 25 people. And so I pulled the cast together and said, okay, guys, we're launching this weekend. We just heard this. That doesn't take effect till Monday. So this weekend, we're fine. Next weekend, we're still planning the shows as is. We've already seen a couple of ticket sales. We're going to keep pushing this. And if it's only 25 people in the audience, if that's what we have to limit it to, we're going to make that work. We'll have to figure things out. We can hold 400 in the building. We were planning 300. Then we went to 125. After that, we found out that 25 was the limit on social gatherings. It didn't apply to us. They were putting a little different number in. We were really fine, but we went ahead and reduced it to 90 and made it all couch seating. But it didn't matter what we did to adapt because we were getting calls all weekend and ticket sales sort of bottomed out because everybody's like, oh, well, we can't come because they said only 25 people can be in a gathering. Didn't apply. They still have 25 people in a restaurant and 25 people in Walmart and more than that in all these other places too. So we can adapt all we want, but if we can't get people in the door and feeling safe, and there's a two-edged sword there in the sense that we put out a lot of information on social media and on the website and all these things about, what we do for safety. We require people to wear masks, and we've had to go above and beyond with some things because of the type of business we are. And we've done all that gladly. We put all that information out.
And you paid for all those things yourself, not being, even though it's new. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been very expensive. But we've done all that, and it hasn't alleviated a whole lot of people's concerns, because I still know a lot of people, they won't go out to a restaurant or anywhere else. They're still ordering their groceries in. I don't expect those people to show up at the theater. And they look at it and go, well, if just a third of the people say, hey, we want something fun and we want to get out of the house, and they come to this, that's more than enough to fill our seats. But the reality is there's a lot of people in the opposite group that are like, well, I don't want to go somewhere and have to wear my mask for a couple hours. That's why they're not going to the movies. The movies are tanking and everything else. So, you got to put out the safety stuff, or your
movies were moving to Netflix anyway. I started saying that 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, it was the day before, or day after Thanksgiving, which I thought was really innovative from a movie theater standpoint. It was for $100 you can rent the theater. You pick the movie, and you can have up to 25 people there. So we were invited by some friends to do that. And that was a really great experience. We had the theater to ourselves, and we didn't. Once the movie started, we took the mask off, and because we were eating popcorn and whatnot. But have you thought about, or do you do that stuff now?
Right. I think time together with your family is still an essential thing. Time together with your friends, and that's what we're still trying to provide. Because we could have just said close it up, but we had a lot riding on this. We couldn't, we didn't just pay 1 month's rent and say walk away from it. That's not how a lot of these leases work down there. So we've had a lot riding on it, and we've continued to plow into that, saying we know this is going to open up at some point, and we know this is the right place to be. And so it's been a difficult challenge for our family and for a lot of families.
Yeah, I want to share with us the whole premise of what the show is, even before anything even happened. Opening night, what was the vision, and what do you hope to aspire that to become once you're able to open the doors again?
Yeah, theater is really a method for us to use to get families to spend some time doing something together. And that's been something I've done in other capacities for many years. But this was the nucleus of this idea was something that our family had. We were on a vacation years ago. And we said, man, when you're on vacation, you're trying to spend time together as a family. And a lot of things are like, well, somebody wants to do this, somebody else wants to do that. And you sort of go along, but there's not a lot of things that you do together. And there's challenges on a family. And you want to spend time together because you want to sort of, build values in the next generation. You want to spend time. You want to, see how people are doing and recharge batteries and everything. And you want to do that together. And that's not always how family vacations go. And so we had this idea about the show, or at least a version of it, many years ago. And we said, well, this is a great idea. If we ever lived somewhere that was like a resort area, this would be a great thing to do. And so years later, we find ourselves in Virginia Beach. And we were trying to figure out, so as sort of some plans changed, we were trying to figure out what's next for us here. We had just bought a house, and we were trying to figure out what's our next move here. And we felt very committed to staying here. And my wife reminded me about this idea from years before. I said, well, isn't it funny? God brought us to this community that's, trying to have this family-friendly vibe. They're trying to revive that down at the ocean front, and there's not anything like this. And we started exploring that idea. And that's, not long after that's when I sort of crossed paths with Zack. And so what it shaped into was creating a theatrical production. So like you would go to a play or a musical. My wife has and a lot of you may have been to like a murder mystery or a smaller kind of event where there's some interactive elements, or if you've gone to some of these big shows in like Myrtle Beach or Gatlinburg or somewhere else that, you've seen where there's a time in the show they bring a couple kids up on stage and they play a game or something like that. So there's a little bit of an interactive element there, but it's not the whole show. So my wife sort of compared this to, if you go to a musical, they're telling a story in the show, and then every so often they break into a song, and that song is part of the story. So if you've seen Hamilton or any other musical out there, that's sort of the pattern of what happens in a musical. And ours is the same thing, except instead of breaking into a song, we're not a musical, we break into a game or a challenge. And some of those were intended to involve the whole audience. Some of those were to bring some people up on stage and do some big, wild, crazy game with the family that's part of the story. And you become part of the story. So you get to play along with the play. And that was designed to be a together moment. So when we say Family Fun Xperience, it really is about it being an experience together as a family. Family isn't just code word for like, this is fun for the kids or this is children's theater. This is really for the whole family. So in the story, in this play, there's a mom, a dad, two kids, sort of a teenager and a young kid, and sort of grandpa that's out in the garage inventing things and drops in on the story here and there. And they're going through some life and struggles and things like that, but they like to play games. And those games, right after the beginning, start involving the audience. And some of those would pull people up on stage. And we still do a couple of things where we pull some people up on stage. We just have to be careful with masks and distancing. And we've reinvented some of those games so they're touch-free and stuff like that. And then a lot of games involve the whole audience. And we've leaned more heavily into that side of it. But you get to play along all through the story and get to connect with what's going on in the family and the story, like you would in any show. You sort of identify with what's going on in the story, but then you also get to connect a little bit with the members of your own family while you're there.
This is your first business that you ever had?
No.
Okay, so you've done this rodeo before. What did you learn from, in some capacity?
Yeah.
Sounds like. What did you learn from that previous experience that you've been able to utilize with this one?
While there's some pieces that I'd say that are there, there's
really got you on that one.
That's a great question. Yeah, because I can't say there's a whole lot. A lot of what I've done before has been some training and consulting stuff. We did some direct sales stuff, things like that. So we might have had a team of people, but never having to try to put together all the brick and mortar side of it and payroll side of it and all these things. So if anything, it was just, not ignoring some of the paperwork and doing things. So, making sure we had our 501c3 and our, corporation filed and all those things before we got started. And those are a lot of challenging pieces to creating a nonprofit organization, and
sure.
We did all that. That was important to make sure we had those things right. But it's been a constant learning process.
What about from like a stress perspective? I mean, my guess is this is stressful, right? Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Have you been in a similar stressful situation in the past that you figured out a way to get through it, and have you kind of looked back at those times to try to learn from that so that it could help you get through this?
Yeah, definitely. My background is actually in education and counseling. Served in family ministry also for years. I used to teach stress management workshops. So just because you teach some of that doesn't mean you're always good at it when the situation hits. So this has definitely been probably the most stressful year of our lives, but by far not the only stressful year. We've had a lot of years with a lot of challenges and dealt with a lot of things. And so we've had to really lean on one another as a family and lean on the community as much as we can. Been a little bit challenging with all the disconnect with a lot of communities right now because of the COVID situation, but leaning in and having support and lifting one another up has been really important.
Well, and if you said something at the start where people were thinking this is going to be a couple-week thing, right?
Yeah.
And so even now, 9 months into this, seems like it's 9 months. I don't know if maybe it's 10 months. It's like, okay, they seem to start to talk about a vaccine now, right? I guess today's the big day where the FDA approves or denies this vaccine. And then people in their minds are thinking, okay, immediately that's fixed. When I'm hearing summer is when even the masses start to get it. So you're still looking at 6 more months of that, if my math on when winter and summer meet.
Right.
so that would be what, 15, 16, 17 months. Like because I feel like you're the first person that we've talked to that opened a business right when all this nonsense happened, right? And so you obviously expected trouble in your first year, right? You anticipate you not having the greatest of first years, because I think there is some sort of ramp up to get people to know who you are and stuff like that. But I mean, I reckon you didn't anticipate this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. None of what we've had to deal with this year is what we expected. Even
companies like I look at I think about a company like J&A Racing, who used to put on a lot of the races down there. I kind of think of them similar to what you're doing, and it's like they're just, people are still running. They just can't have their events, or at least they couldn't have their events because they couldn't get permitted. Is my guess is why they couldn't, and many other races too. And so it's I don't know. I'm all about like businesses being open and be able to win and stuff like that. And it's frustrating to see that there's so many mandates that you guys have to go through, and then have nothing in place really to help you to when you go through that. It's like, hey, we want you to be successful, but not really. I mean, that's how I take it. It's like, well, the safety of these people. Yes, I get that.
And you've seen businesses do a lot this year trying to accommodate things. So like we were in a restaurant, but you saw them, open up some outdoor dining options, and they're still trying to stretch into some of those things. The Atlantic Avenue Association was going to partner with the Boardwalk Art Show, draws like 250,000 people every year. They had to move it. They were moving it from June to November. We were going to partner with them and offer this whole experience. And we thought,
you've done that before, right? Is that the chalk one?
The Boardwalk, our show has the chalk and other things like that, but they were figuring out they're not going to do any food on the boardwalk. They're going to keep all the traffic moving one direction. And we were back in the summer trying to plan some of this with them, thinking, we don't know if this is even going to have to be an issue come November, but let's plan for just in case. How's this going to be safe? And how do we get people to come and visit the other businesses on the thing and put art installations in these things, keep everything safe and distant? A lot of things going on. All these businesses try to accommodate all this stuff, and it's a major fundraiser for a museum of contemporary art and things like that. But in the end of it all, the Boardwalk Art Show made the same decision that hundreds of other events in this area have made this decision, and said we had to cancel the whole event. That canceled all the related plans. That canceled, and every one of these decisions, it doesn't just affect like J&A Racing or the Boardwalk Art Show or MoCA. That's the suppliers to those businesses, the employees of those businesses, all the corollary things that happen. When people come down, 20,000 people come down to a St. Pat's Day race.
Well, I mean, 30,000 people times $100 thing, $100 buy-in.
Right. But how many of those people are also staying in a hotel room?
No, but that's just that race, right? So then there's that plus the 30. Probably 15,000 of those people are staying here. Then going to the establishments, and then
exactly.
I mean, tons of lost revenue.
That's suppliers and janitorial services and all kinds of businesses, some big ones, but a lot of small family businesses that supply things. There's a little printer downstairs, commercial printing. I've got to know this older couple. They've had businesses in this area for years. They're right next to our entrance downstairs, but you wouldn't even notice they're there because they're not on the web. They're just old school printing presses and everything else, but they print a ton of stuff right down the oceanfront. They've been just trying to survive this year, and nobody even knows they're there.
So I saw an ad for South Carolina, like the tourism of South Carolina last night. I was watching The Masked Singer, and great show, by the way. If you guys haven't watched it, it's pretty good.
You haven't been on it yet?
So what?
You haven't been on The Masked Singer yet?
No, I haven't. I wanted to be the white tiger, and Gronk took it from me. So I guess I don't know. And so there was a tourism commercial for South Carolina, basically saying we're open for business, something like that. Okay. And my guess is Virginia Beach is doing something similar. Norfolk, I'm sure, is doing something open. Like we're open for business and things like that. And so as a business owner that welcomes those people to come, is it frustrating? Is it positive? Like, what are your feelings when you see an ad like that, but then understand that you have to go through so many runarounds to even be open? It's like, can't you take that money that you're spending on that ad spend and put it towards these businesses or anything like that? Or are you just like, it is what it is? Is there any thoughts on kind of the marketing towards an area that can it even really be open in the way that they want it to be?
Yeah, I know tourism in our area has had to pivot a lot with all this too. I know they actually had a campaign called We're Open, which was planned for 2020 before any of this hit. It was just ironic timing. And so you see these "We're open" signs on a lot of the businesses down at the oceanfront. That was part of a campaign that was already planned for this year, just took on a different meaning. But a lot of the business that they market, I mean, they spend a lot of money marketing into Canada and Europe and other things. But we get people internationally that come to visit Virginia Beach, not just for the tattoo, Virginia International Tattoo, things like that. We get year round. We get people internationally. There's a marketing budget that goes out to those areas. That's all been on hold because all those things, have canceled. A lot of the group activities and tour buses and travels and things like that all have canceled. They have redirected some of that funds. They did a surf study in sand. I think I've got the order of that wrong, but they did a campaign on that recently, sort of regionally, trying to attract people down to, hey, the oceanfront is open. There's fun things to do. And attract some people down there. We saw, a few things off of that. Not a great response, but I appreciate that they were trying to, shift in terms of how they're supporting and how they're marketing some things. So, got a lot of good people trying to do a lot of good things, but the headwinds are really strong this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's, at least from Zack and I's point of view, that's really tough. So like Zack said, this is episode close to number 40, give or take. And the whole premise of this show is to give businesses the tools and tips that they need in order to succeed and hit that $1 million annual revenue mark. But week after week after week, we have these, we talk to people, and you're right. I mean, it's a headwind just to survive as a business. But then we have something like this, and you don't qualify for PPP because you haven't been around for 3 years. You want to do everything you can in order to generate that revenue, but you can't do that either. And it's just like, this is where we need the decision makers and the policy makers to listen. We know that they're busy, but it's at the same time, it's like, look, you're really tying our hands here. You have to give us some sort of option in order to succeed in business. And it's tough for us week after week to hear that. And you're another one that's facing the same challenge. So that said, what do you have any comment to that?
I think we keep trying to just dig deeper into our mission. And our purpose as a nonprofit organization has been to serve and connect families. Even though we haven't had the attendance we've hoped for, even though we've had to shift things. Like, for instance, right now we had to get our big show launched. We had a number of shows of it. We've had some actors have to shift into some other projects that they're being pulled into. And so we downscaled that in December back to something called FFXmas. And said, we've got just a fun and game show come out. We've got a smaller, safe environment. I dressed up as Santa Claus and walked out along the people in line for all the light show out there, handing out, coupons and things like that, and saying, hey, come on down and, have a free popcorn and enjoy the fun and games. And we've had people come in and enjoy just that. We've found that, ironically, from leaning into saying, okay, here's what's the core of what we're trying to be about, and let's see, the most of that we can offer and reach people with. We found we've reached people that we didn't expect to. So we had people come to the show that's really designed for families and connect families that were young adults and singles. And they're like, this is so great. We want to come back and see it again. We want to bring some friends. It's like, we weren't marketing to you guys, but I'm glad you enjoyed the show and had fun with it. And we've had retired people come to the show. We had a young couple come in and take one of the VIP couches the other night and just, had fun and games. And they had a blast doing it. We actually had a couple things when we first were able to start ramping up this summer. We had a magician in the area called Nomo that he came in and did a magic show on Friday nights, and we did some other game labs and some other shows as we were getting bigger things ramped up and trying to navigate all those waters and those headwinds. We had actually 3 young people that came downstairs. They had a clown down there, and he was making balloons for kids on the street and taking donations, and everybody had their masks on and stuff. And these 2 young Navy guys and this young girl were talking. She'd never been to a magic show, had moved down here and never been to a magic show in her life. They came up. So the magic show, loved it so much they wanted to come back to the late show. They came back to the magic show again. got to know us a little bit, got to know the magician, found out that two of them were engaged. They were trying to figure out how to navigate a wedding, and the magician helped them put together, because he does some other event planning stuff, help them put together a wedding on just a shoestring budget. And we're like, well, we want to make this space available for rentals. We haven't been able to do that just yet. And so we hosted them for the wedding reception there, had a beautiful wedding reception, and made an impact there as well on the beginning of a new family. So we've had a lot of little things like that say, yeah, we're making a difference in some families' lives, even if it's not on the scale that we'd hoped for and not on the scale that we'd budgeted for. But we're going to keep trusting in that process and stick around. We want to be part of this. Yeah.
You may know him as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I know him as just a man who has done incredible things for the last few decades. But how can you use his techniques in your business? I'll show you exactly how. Head on over to ZackMillerSays.com/The Rock, and you can smell what he's cooking.
That's awesome.
So, thank you. I heard you say we weren't marketing to those people, yet they loved what they saw.
Right.
So, family and fun are in the name, and I'm not implying change the name, but when you hear things like that, and then the whole wedding opportunity reception in there, like, how many of those transactions have to happen? How many of those interactions have to happen before you start to maybe change some of your marketing and gear it towards some of those other people instead of the family side of it? And maybe it's just an in-between stage before things go back to normal. But I mean, it seems like that. I mean, Tim was talking about the movie theater and renting that. I mean, the reception there, you have this facility. Like, are you moving towards that at this point? Or do you need to see more of that before you start to kind of go more all in on that?
It's really just been a matter of limited resources, not just financially, but primarily of time. There were people I planned on bringing on board to help manage and grow some of this stuff in the beginning, including marketing. And, other than bringing on some actors and having a couple people help with some production stuff, most of that's been stuff that, what I can pull off myself. I haven't been able to have the resources, time or money to outsource a lot of stuff. So we had planned to do event rentals. That's part of our business plan. That's a market you have to sort of work your way into. So we, looked at that as a way to gift back to this couple, but also, something that got some pictures and some things so we could start marketing that. Of course, then you have a limit of 25 gatherings. So every hotel in the oceanfront and everything else is sitting there going, well, all of our bookings have canceled now. So what if we're another venue that can't host another thing right now? So just as we were starting to spin that up, that sort of spun back down. We had planned to do a little more food. We've got a full kitchen, glorious space there. We've got just a simple concession stand right now. We looked in phase 2 in Virginia at the previous business license was still there. And it's like, he was going to partner with us and say, hey, just open up in this whole thing, just so you can open up something in this time. And we're like, we started investigating with the health department and everything else. Okay, what do we have to do to ramp up a restaurant here? Even if we have the same menu, which we couldn't find cooks to hire because everybody was on the payroll, $600 a week, and all the restaurants down there were having a hard time hiring staff. And we're like, we're going to try to hire staff to bring people into a restaurant that didn't succeed with a menu that didn't work well for a few weeks until maybe phase 3 hits and maybe we can open the theater back up. And we're going to spend all this money on food and start a restaurant. It's like, we're not in the business of starting a restaurant. So we'd still love to offer more food and plan to do that down the road, but it's just, all these things are just a matter of time and resources.
That said, how long would it take? I mean, you've scaled back dramatically in order to keep the lights on. How long would you anticipate it would take for you to, once given the green light, to ramp up to full steam ahead that you were hoping to on April 1st?
In a lot of it, we can ramp up really, really quickly. With the show itself, part of the challenge with having a year-round production, a little different than if you do, 2 weekends of our town at a community theater. You can get some people together, they rehearse for a number of weeks, they put on the show, and they're all done, they go back to their lives. When you have an ongoing show that you're trying to do 3 or 4 times a week or even more than that in the summer, the dad in the cast might have to play dad and go with his own family on a real vacation, and we can't shut the show down that week. So we have to actually have more cast members rehearsed and able to pull off the production than you see in any one show. Okay, and that's the same for any kind of large production. You have to have multiple cast members and all those things. And the theater industry has been very hard hit by this, and also in some ways even more afraid to come out and do things than the audience. We've found that. So finding talented cast members has been a special challenge, even though they have very little work to do out there in other theater. We found a lot of them. They're like, well, can we just submit it on video? And you're not doing live, rehearsals and things, are you? And I'm like, well, it's a live show with real people. So, yeah, if you're not comfortable with that, then that pretty much is a non-starter right there. We've had those kind of conversations. We've had people who were cast and, tangents of COVID in their family, or, concerns with a spouse's job that they had to limit their availability for things. And so it has been very difficult getting that cast. Now, I think as things start to free up, there's a big pent-up demand there. So I think we could ramp that part up quickly with everything we've done this year and putting the show on already. I think we can ramp that up fairly quickly. And we're hoping by mid to late spring to be ramping that back up. Yeah. So as the vaccines get out there and things like that, we are more than ready to take on an onslaught.
This question for either of you. Have they said anything about something in the water 2021?
I've not heard anything, but I wanted to dive into that just in general in terms of, Tim, were you going to be brought into something in the water when you were first going to open in April? I would love to hear, because one of the takeaways that I've had from this show is hearing about all the collaboration that takes place on Atlantic Avenue and the different groups that you're part of. Yeah, I would love to hear about the impact of something in the water, where you're going to be part of that. Just dive in and please share. We were excited about that because as we started looking at this space and as we were preparing to sign the lease on and everything else, a lot of the deadlines had passed, but Something in the Water was trying to do a little more for locals this in 2020. And they had this whole stage and vendor area they were creating aside from the ticketed area, and it was more targeted at locals. And they were looking for natural things and fun things. And we're like, I don't have a cast. I can't put something on their stage. They had I think 1,800 acts apply for the couple of days of stage space they had to do performances. They had to winnow that down to see who they were going to put on stage. But we looked at, in the vendor marketplace, what can we do to sort of support the launch of a theater effort here? And I had a cotton candy machine. So we said, well, they want natural things. So we actually had a little tasting party over here, and we invented all these ways to use organic sugar and flavorings and make some really good cotton candy. It's not quite as colorful, but it tasted awesome. Of course, we had a couple of them that we definitely left out because they did not taste awesome. But we had all these fun, quirky flavors, and we thought, this is great. We made an application, Something in the Water. We were going through the process to be approved there. I was looking at maybe buying a second cotton candy machine because there was another little pop-up marketplace right by us down there with the surf shop. We thought, well, we'll do 2 of these down here. And then we found out Something in the Water was using their main parking drop-off for Uber and Lyft, and everything was the Catholic Church parking lot area off of Pacific that's like a block away from ours. So the main walkway for everybody passing by was going to be right by us in the theater. So I'm looking at, how do we launch some things in the theater while we're still running this cotton candy thing over here, and this is going to be all big and exciting. And then, of course, the shoe dropped and Something in the Water didn't happen. So we've been in the loop on a lot of the communications because of some of those connections, but we haven't heard anything definite about 2021. I know he's made commitments that he wants to, continue to see it happen here. I think that, whether that large event can happen in the way it did.
Yeah, I would anticipate it's a no for 2021, maybe 2022.
Yeah,
it's crazy, like when people started saying things like, oh, yeah, well, this stuff isn't going to happen again until 2 years from now, just because something that was at 35,000, I think, was the cap, which obviously there was a lot more people than that there, just kind of around. And then
we're at 60 this year, 60,000.
Right. So it'll probably be double that of actual people trying to get down there that don't have tickets, but will still be down there. I mean, it's That's a lot. And then he has his new thing down there too that I don't know much about.
The Wave project is moving
Wave.
forward. That's just a few blocks from our theater also. So, we hope to see some of that stuff grow and continue to. I know they're already working on some of the projects for the old dome site there to make this new Wave Park and all the related complex around it. And with that going forward, I know they're going to do something in the water.
So is it when he walks his walk, right? Or he walks his talk. So there's a lot of people who don't. So kudos for him for that. So it's basically try to get through this, and then everything should be okay, I guess, is kind of the mindset right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many Christmas trees should one family have in their home?
I think multiple is a good thing. So
okay. I see two in yours, and I just realized the second one.
A little decoration over here, my wife put out. Yeah.
No, I don't even know how many we have.
You have more not like little porcelain trees or anything like that, but you have more than 2 trees in your house, Tim?
It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yes.
Who in your family is obsessed with Christmas?
It would be my wife.
I knew it. I knew it was Terry. Happy birthday, Terry, yesterday, by the way. I forgot to tell her happy birthday. Hopefully she doesn't hate me. Tim Ritter, when's your birthday?
June 11th.
All right, well, I got plenty of time to get you. There you go. I don't want to be that person.
So how many trees do you have in your house, Zach?
1.
That's good.
My wife does it
the
all.
only one here that counts. But with the theater, we actually we usually go and cut down a Christmas tree together. We end up getting a couple from the Shack has an area set up with Christmas trees this year. Mm-hmm. So while I was out doing the Santa thing, we walked around as Santa and actually got our tree right here and got we got 2 for up at the theater. So we had one up on stage for our FFX show and another.
I feel like the theater is a little different.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have said 2020 is the worst year ever. And I think sometimes when they say that, they are allowing others to make that decision for themselves, just because they keep hearing in other places 2020 has been so terrible, et cetera, et cetera. When you look back at 2020, it's not over at this point, but when you look back at it, how would you grade 2020 as a year for you?
I think it's a mixed thing. I don't think we have the perspective historically to look at things like 50 million people passing away in the Spanish flu 100 years ago and things like that, when the whole population of the earth was much smaller. So it's hard to even imagine how bad some things have been at different points in history. But within our lifetimes, I think 2020 has had a lot of awful stuff, but it's had a lot of good things too. A lot of families have spent more time together, and that's been good in a lot of ways, but then it's been bad in other ways. I know there's things that are on, deep into our heart. We see, suicide rates going up. We see, spouse and child abuse and elder abuse, and some of those rates going up. And there's a lot of things that have been hard on families, and it's a year people are gonna not remember positively in a lot of cases. And I know I've talked about business. There's a lot of businesses I've talked to. A very small subset of them, they're like, hey, their business has been great this year. They've had record-breaking years. And so they're going to remember 2020 a little differently. I mean, everybody's going to feel the loss of, the lives that we've had and just the impact that's happened on our lives this year. I know that's going to be a big thing. For us, I think as a family, even though it has not been at all any element of plan A, B, C, or D, what we planned to happen with the theater and all the stuff we've had to deal with. Not to mention, we had a big 2nd-story window busted out with the riots that were down there. And, before we were able to go live with the show, we had pictures on the news of, tear gas being lobbed in front of our new sign in the building. Oh, gosh. It's been, a crazy year. But it's also the year that this thing we've been dreaming about and really wanted to put on started. And so when we're still down there in 5 and 10 years, and we've seen other things like this growing in the oceanfront, which we hope we aren't the only one in 5 or 10 years down, and we hope to see more things like this down there for families, that we look back at 2020 and say, as bad as that was the year that this got blessed and started to move forward. And those challenges hopefully made us stronger through this.
Well, as the great Kelly Clarkson says, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. I don't think she's the one to say that originally, but gotta love that song. So I was hoping you would use the word family. So is there anything, because it's in everything for you, right?
Yeah.
Is there Is there something that you've been able to do more of with your family because of 2020? Because I look at it and like my wife's been working from home every day this year, and that's never happened before. And so it's been lovely to have something like that.
Yeah,
it's been lovely to have that there. She's not watching, so I don't have to worry about
that. It's been an interesting year because we moved here to Virginia Beach about 7 years ago, and we just finally become empty nesters. Our son had gone off to college in Missouri. We moved here from Indiana. Our daughter was just finishing college and had gone off to do some summer stock theater. But by a year later, we had both kids here in Virginia Beach, and our daughter had moved here to get some surgery on her ankle and ended up getting hired by the Virginia Opera, and worked with them for a number of years. My son sort of rethought what his college plans were and ended up coming out here and doing a cinematography degree at Regent. And one thing led to another. With some of the stuff that was shifting, our daughter wasn't sure about signing a lease, had moved in here temporarily when all this hit. Our son's lease was running out where he was living at. So he's like, hey, can I move in and try to, figure out what the next move is? And so we actually ended up with both kids as adults under our roof during all this. And the opera furloughed some people, and then just recently let a lot of their staff go because they were planning on starting back in January, and they've now shifted that to a fall of 2021 season with a new executive director, and they're not sure how that's all going to pan out. Our son's got a great job here working locally. He had planned with a group of people to move down to Atlanta this year, and they were going to get into the film industry, which sort of disappeared in Atlanta. So he's here with a good job, but he's had times where they've had him forced because of COVID to work from home. Our daughter has been working from home till the news recently. My wife works for the city of Norfolk, and she's working from home 95% of the time. They go in to take care of a couple things in the office here and there. I haven't had the same experience a lot of people had of, we're just sitting at home and relaxing and had a lot more free time to take up knitting or whatever during this year. And, chefs, I've been at the theater constantly, and we've been working from first thing in the morning until well past midnight most days of the week. And
well, you don't look tired.
Taking a break.
The Fervent 4 is powered by the Small Business Development Center, which helps local small businesses grow through counseling. If you're interested in learning more on how the SBDC can help your business, head to startwheel.org/weekly.
Great plug there. Jim Carroll from SBDC advised us a number of times. He's been invaluable. So I'll give a big plug there for SBDC.
He would love to. He would love to hear his name being called. Good old Jim Carroll. Tim Ryan.
Yeah, I have a note here, Tim, to that captured my attention. I want to hear about the Lion King story.
Oh, Lion King, yeah. So a friend of mine for a number of years in family ministry with churches had shared this story, and it's something always sort of sat with us in terms of why we try to reach out and impact families and things we've done prior to Family Fun Xperience as well. And this is a lot about what we're trying to do in the crux of what the Family Fun Xperience is about. When The Lion King came out as an animated feature, are you guys aware what was uniquely different that Disney was experimenting with in that?
I don't think so.
Watercolors.
Yeah, it wasn't CGI. That wasn't CGI in the original one. I'm talking about the original Lion King. What they noticed and marketing.
Sing-alongs? No. Couldn't be sing-alongs.
There were catchy songs and there were good characters and everything. I mean, they knew a lot of the formula, what made a Disney animated feature work well. But what they couldn't figure out was when family would take their kids to see an animated Disney show, they would take the kids. It was for the kids. The parents might enjoy it somewhat. There's a catchy song or something like that. But when they're done, kids might want to go see it again, but you had to wait for VHS or something else like that, or DVD, because they weren't going to put, the parents didn't care about still going to see it again. And what they tried to do with Lion King, they said, we want to have things that work at different levels and connect with the audience in a way so that it really is something that everybody gets something out of. So there's going to be some jokes that go over the kids' heads and are for the parents, and there's things that, the teens might identify with and so on. And it worked because when people went to the show, they found patterns where parents were saying, hey, we took the kids to the show, but on date night, can we go see it again, just the two of us? That never happened for even Lady and the Tramp, any of the other things. So even a romantic scene, you didn't see date night with adults. You saw groups of teens going out to see Lion King together. They didn't usually go to animated Disney movies as a group of teens, but they did that for Lion King because they saw something in it that they could connect with and identify with. It wasn't just for the kids. And that's sort of our Lion King story.
Interesting. What's your favorite Disney movie?
My favorite Disney movie? One of my least favorite things is picking favorites because I always have more than one favorite.
Okay, well, what is your top three then, Tim Ritter?
No, I'll give you one. I'll give you Fox and the Hound.
There you go. Tim Ryan? Tim number one, Tim number two?
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of Disney movies, man. I'll be honest with you.
You don't have Disney Plus? Come on, Tim.
No.
Well, Disney owns like Star Wars and other things now, so you can name almost anything. It's got some tie into Disney.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that to your point, Tim, I thought that the Cars movies were really well done in the sense of throwing some humor that goes over kids' heads. So I would probably say the Cars movies off the top of my head.
Yeah, they did the same thing after that new formula was figured out. Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool. So moving forward, closing up on this, what's next for you? I mean, it's been a good but chaotic year for you. A lot of bucket list items have been checked. A lot of other non-bucket list items have been checked as well. Like what's the future for Tim Ritter and the FFX show?
Short term right now, we've got this FFXmas show. So anybody watching this, please, come on out to see that. You can go to our website and click on tickets and that. But one other special thing I want to sort of mention here, it's the first time we've announced it anywhere. Our family has been talking recently just about noticing all the stories we've come across of other families that are connected to business. Because my daughter has been key to keeping this whole thing together, and my wife and my son. They all had parts in Family Fun Xperience. But we've gotten to know so many other families that are in business, and I know we have the Small Business Saturday and Shop Small and that kind of effort that happened recently. And people have focused on that through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the idea of shopping local or buying local. And those are really important because it keeps a lot of dollars in the local economy. But there's a subset of those businesses that the core of the business is the family. So like the example is the couple that runs the print shop downstairs from us, a family that runs a little mini mart kind of thing. And another family we know that owns a surf shop, and all these families of family. I saw multiple stores on the ocean front and elsewhere, like we've all seen, closing up. And people have, during this pandemic, talked about reaching out to help support restaurants or help support, these other businesses that are things they like to frequent. But we found there are so many small businesses that are really run by a family, and not small businesses, not empires. Small businesses that are local, they're run by families, and they might provide cleaning services. They might provide supplies to something. They are totally behind the scenes. They're not like the ones that everybody sees and can just walk in and buy their lunch or do things like that. And so we really started thinking about how discouraging it's been for so many families, and a lot of them have had to call it quits. I've mentioned a few of them in the show here today. Had to give up on decades. I know somebody that's closely involved with us has it's a family business, but they run a number of franchises in the area, and the deep investment they've made to try to keep their employees paid this year on top of PPP, even though their business has been, one of the other really hard hit businesses. I mean, they've taken a nest egg out of their entire retirement and everything else just to keep the business afloat. And it's not like when all this comes back in X number of months we go through, like Zack was saying, that money ever has a chance of returning. If it returns to normal, there's 20 years of what they've, invested in their business that was just spent on trying to survive this year. That doesn't just come back to them in a year and they probably don't have another 20 years left. so it's hard seeing how hard this has been and how discouraging this has been for so many families. And when you have a family business, it's not like, it's just a small thing or a job or all the normal struggles. It's also really deeply interwoven. All the struggles we've talked about are really deeply interwoven into the family itself. And I know you guys probably know a number of other family businesses in the area. And so we decided to start sort of a special campaign from now through the end of the year, sort of the idea of the straw that broke the camel's back. And we don't want to see any more family businesses that are sort of in those hidden areas. And, and some of them are a little more known, but any of those family businesses just to be so discouraged that they have to call it quits, that they have to give up everything, and that they don't know how to survive through all this. And, we can't create a government program and have $1 trillion bailouts or anything like that to help these any more than anybody else can with the rest of it. But we thought what we could do is help them with three things. We want to create some donations and we'll nominate businesses through that to be able to help them pay at least one bill, just so there's some kind of tangible support saying, hey, we know it's been a rough year and we want you to know the community around you cares about you. We want to provide them something fun. And so whether that's a game we send them or tickets to something or whatever it is, something that the family can do together. Because when a family's in business and they're going through times like this, they do not spend much time doing anything other than just trying to survive. And we know that they need some encouragement as a family as well. And then the third thing, we're asking people if they feel so inclined to either send positive thoughts or prayers or whatever their way, and just pray for them. So on top of that, do the same thing you've been doing, shop small. So we started a website yesterday called One Less Straw, #1-less-straw. The idea of we can take one straw off that camel's back. We know that, the family of camels is going to work hard and they're going to, keep that business plowing ahead because it means everything to them as a family. And to their employees and all the tangent businesses that are supported by that family. Every time that one of those family businesses go under, there's all those tangential businesses that are impacted as well. And so we thought, if we can start something, just do one less straw. And we're starting here, but we're asking people to share that regionally, nationally. We'll try to support as many families as we can. We're not trying to just support just the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, but we're trying to start it here.
That's great.
You heard it here first. I love it. It's interesting because, a lot of people talk about an aircraft carrier leaving and the effects of that. I mean, if you think about COVID, it's like all of the aircraft carriers leaving at once. And so it's been hugely impactful to so many. And so thank you for that. one-lessstraw.com. Is that what it is?
Yep. onelessstraw.org.
onelessstraw.org. Appreciate you being with us, Tim, you doing that, and looking forward to you seeing success now in 2021 and in 5 to 10 years as well, like you said. So looking forward to seeing you in person at some point down the future as well. And thank you so much for being on the Fervent 4 show. Until next week, we'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it. Peace and pancakes. And if you want pancakes, maybe sometime get them at the FFX show because they have a full kitchen. Just ask them for pancakes. Say Zack Miller sent you. I mean, he'll have to make them. So
we
peace.
got Zack in back cooking pancakes.
There you go. Extra maple syrup. Peace, y'all.
See you guys.